2019 brought a lot of new things for me and Dan. We started the Maine hunt after talking about it for probably about a year, and it just was one of those things that we wanted to do but kind of didn't know how to and didn't know really where to start. And I went on a moose hunt with him last year, not even planning to start filming like for a show or anything. I actually just went to kind of film it for him to have the memories. And so we started it this spring in May, right before turkey season started, just kind of as a way to document our memories. And we both have a passion for being in the woods, and it's just what we love to do. So we love looking back on it, and it's just kind of like pictures, but a million times better in my opinion, just to be able to watch back through those moments of excitement. And anyone who hunts knows what it feels like to harvest an animal and have that excitement, especially when you're sharing it with friends and family. So fast forward basically to, I think it was July, we got permission on a huge piece of property, like 1,200 acres, from a farmer. I actually cut his hair, and it was one of those pieces that was a little bit overwhelming when we went to scout it. I've never scouted a piece of property that big, and so we spent a few hours. Devin was able to come out and film for us, which is a huge help as we scouted it. And the landowner, he came out and walked around for like 3 hours with us and showed us the land and everything. And so we set up trail cameras, did all that, started to get pictures of a lot of bucks, a lot of really good bucks, bigger ones than I've had in the past. And so we ended up focusing most of our energy on that property. There was actually 2 different properties, and so we started to go to the other property about a few weeks later. I actually was driving by, I hadn't had any trail cameras in the area. We had just driven by this field, and it was the last thing we were gonna do before we go home, and we stop, and I saw some deer out in the back of this field, and so I pulled my binos up, and I mean, it was like the biggest deer I've ever seen in Maine by far. That began the story of a buck that I pretty much was gonna dedicate my season to, and it's a buck that we're not going to show footage of right now, and there's a lot of reasons for that, mainly because there's a lot of hunters, there's a lot of competition, and I don't know for sure if that deer is still alive or dead. So until I know either one of us killed him or someone else killed him and that's confirmed, then I'm not going to show footage of him, so don't hate me for that. But we've looked at it a lot and showed some people who are very knowledgeable on scoring. I mean, I know quite a bit about it, but I'm not an expert on it, and pretty sure this deer would go between 150 and 170 right now. And if he did live till next year, if he does live till next year, then he's going to be world class. I mean, he already is. But we basically set out to focus on this deer for the season. Went out and filmed him one more time. Devin was with me and Dan was with me that time. Got really good footage. I mean, broad daylight, walking around a field. And I went in a week before the season. Set up a tree stand. I had just had pictures of them in daylight, 45 minutes after light, and for the first time I actually felt really confident about going in during bow season after a deer of that caliber, and went in opening day, and we got in like an hour and a half early, thought everything was perfect. Had a deer come in, which I still am 95% sure was Andy. That's what we named the buck, was Andy. That's a whole different story that I'll tell at some point of why we named him that. But he came in at 5:15. Legal light was at 6:08. So he came in at 5:15 and he crashed around, made a rub, did all kinds of stuff till 5:50. So 18 minutes before legal he left. Along with my hopes and dreams, gone. And so that was kind of a tough pill to swallow, knowing that we made the right moves, we were in the right spot, and it just didn't work out. So I still felt pretty confident though after that. I mean, we had him in front of us opening morning, just couldn't really lay eyes on him because it was dark. And so we went back in. I actually went with Devin the next week. We went in a few days later, and we actually didn't see anything that morning. Really, the only thing I ended up seeing out of that stand was a couple does, but me and Devin sat for a few hours that morning, and I actually thought for sure, I mean, the weather was right that morning, everything, I thought for sure we were going to see him, and we didn't. And then shortly after that, I heard from someone else who hunts in the area a rumor that a big deer had been killed, and I'm still not sure exactly. I don't know what happened. I checked my cameras. I had 5 cameras in that area, and my cameras dropped off for 3 weeks. I mean, I had 2 does on camera in 3 weeks, and I had deer everywhere. It wasn't just like that buck. It's not like Andy just disappeared, like all the deer disappeared. So, I mean, who knows what happened. I know hunting pressure, and they shift their patterns in October anyway. So, basically, I kind of gave up on that deer for the season because he had disappeared and because at the time I was pretty sure he was dead. I'm not real sure about that now, and that's why I'm not going to show footage of him. So, skipped a rifle season. I went out opening morning and saw 3 does, and I had a doe tag, and I passed them up, and I saw 3 in the evening, and passed those up too. Monday morning, I filmed for my dad, and he shot at a buck. So we had a lot of action the first couple days of rifle season, and then the rest of that first week, I wasn't seeing anything. And my brother, Jeremy from North Dakota, came in on Friday evening, or Thursday evening. We went bird hunting all day Friday up north, and then Saturday morning, we decided to start deer hunting.
Guys, I just shot a huge buck. I can't even talk right now. I don't even know what to say. Show you guys this thing. Thank you, God. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Guys, look at this deer. Oh my word.
So, today has been about one of the worst days of hunting. Everything's gone wrong, kind of like this whole season. It's been really rough. We went out this morning and didn't see much and blew deer out of a field and whatever, so went home, ate, came back out. Spot we were gonna go to, there's 3 trucks parked there, so we're like, well, we won't go there. Went to a different spot. That kind of wasn't great either, so we had an hour left. There's this one strip that we've never really hunted, but it's not posted, and so my dad has a doe tag, so we're like, well, why don't you sit on the edge of the field? I had my brother Jeremy's home, and I said, why don't you sit on the edge of the field with him, and if a doe comes out, you can shoot that. If a buck comes out, you can shoot it. So I decided to come in just down the field, probably 150 yards, and I come in. I've never been in here before. I looked at the map, and I'm like, I don't know, I think this spot looks okay. So I walk in, and it's just thick evergreens. There's sign everywhere, poop. So I work my way through, and I'm grunting, and I see a little drop off, it looks like, and so like, well, I'll get up to that edge, and so I grunt and I take a step kind of under a branch, and I hear a deer move a little bit. I'm like, well, I need to get to the ravine. It's like a 40-foot steep ravine, and so I get up to the edge and I see flags, and I grunt again, and they all stop, and I can just see one deer, the biggest body that I saw run. I never saw his rack somehow, and so I see this little opening, just little tiny opening through evergreens, probably like 80 yards down at the bottom of the ravine, and I see a deer standing. I can just see his shoulder. So I zoom my scope in. I can't really make him out in the scope, so I zoom it all the way in, and all of a sudden, he's turning broadside, but I see his head turned back. And I see literally just saw the split of his antler with the main beam. And I was like, oh, big buck. And so I zoomed the scope back out, put it on his shoulder, squeezed the trigger, and I had no idea if I hit him. I mean, it was a tiny little opening. And so I waited for a little bit, came down the hill, and walked up on by far the biggest buck I've ever killed. And I'm just literally blown away right now by what God just blessed me with. This deer is insane. I don't really know what to say. I definitely cried after from my iPhone video that you guys will probably see. I was kind of losing my mind. I've waited literally, it's the 16th deer I've shot. I've hunted for 15 years, and I've dreamed about killing a deer like this. And so to have Jeremy home is pretty special. I'm not going to get emotional about that either. And then just I know how excited Maddie's going to be. So I am beyond excited to show Maddie this deer. Probably going to be one of the biggest bucks I ever kill. So pretty special day.
Oh my word! Maddie, look!
Oh my word. What a beautiful...
Maddie, look at that deer. Come here.
Oh, I
Come here.
cannot believe how beautiful
Look at that deer.
Beautiful. Unbelievable.
That buck. Look at him. Oh, nice. Jeez. I was way off. What is he? I guess way high.
Yeah, 175. Okay, let's say 205. That's exactly what I said.
I guess 194. Guess what he was? What? 175.
I still have the biggest weight!
Shut your face.
So unreal. So symmetrical too.
Pretty cool. I'm excited. Luke, you don't happen to have like a tape measure, like not a stiff tape measure?
No, I have a soft one.
Four and 1/8, so
You wanna go for minutes?
7 1/4.
Zach, what was it?
Huh?
What was it?
It grossed 142 in 1/8.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
He's tiny. He's just a little fella. What's up, Chloe?
Oh my gosh, holy. Whoa.
It's okay, you can hop up there and touch him. I know you want to. Alright. I'm gonna have a hard time believing that he was only 175.
He was 175?
Really?
Oh, you're supposed to guess.
Yeah.
Shoot.
I was gonna
I
say
would
you
have
were
guessed.
200
I would have
plus.
guessed over 200
Yeah.
I guess was 205 because it was heavy.
because he is pretty long.
Yeah.
Jeez, he's big. I really would have thought that was over 200.
Yeah.
What is he rocking for paws down here?
Big old honkers.
That's cool, man.
It's crazy.
His rack was sick.
You wanna guess what he scored?
Have you already scored him?
Gross and net. Yeah, I have both. What do you think? See your estimating skills, Dan.
Honestly, he is pretty. He's got some mass to him. I don't know, like 135?
You're not far. Net or gross?
Gross would be a little higher, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So he grossed 142 and 1/8, and he netted 137 and 3/8.
Okay, I was gonna guess 140.
Nice.
Gross.
Yeah, you
So
were
that's
close.
close.
I told Jeremy 140 is what I thought.
That's cool, man.
I teased my brother a little bit when he shot his big buck back in 2016 and how he acted like a little kid on Christmas morning, freaking out and screaming. And so I called him right after I shot it, and he said the same thing to me. He's like, dude, you were freaking out. Like, you couldn't keep it together. And so it's just cool to have those memories. I wish I had gotten the shot on film, but to be completely honest, even if I'd had a cameraman with me, the way that happened, there's not a chance that would have been on film. I mean, you might have seen me in frame shooting the gun, but you wouldn't have seen the actual shot on film. I mean, it was way down the ravine. I actually took a video of the opening that I shot through, and I'll put that in. But I mean, it happened pretty quick, and it wouldn't have been on film. So regardless, I mean, as much as we try to make that a priority, sometimes it doesn't work out. And I mean, it is what it is. So the other cool thing was, like 3 days after I shot the deer, I was thinking back through some trail camera pictures from that area from last year, and it kind of clicked. We were actually eating supper, and I randomly go grab my laptop, and my wife is like, what are you doing? Like right in the middle of supper. And I was like, I gotta check something. I have to know. And so I pull up the trail camera picture that I was thinking of, and clear as day, it's the same buck. Definitely a little bit smaller and a little bit less mass, but the exact same frame from last year. And it's kind of crazy. It was like almost the same date. It was like 3 days. I think it was November 13th of 2018, and I shot him on November 9th, so 4 days difference. And I think he's just one of those bucks that shows up during the rut, cruising around looking for does, and it was just kind of crazy. My brother thought it was very ironic that the amount of time that I put in scouting and trail cameras and going out and trying to film him in velvet and all that I shot a deer that I didn't even really know about. I mean, I didn't have much history with this deer, and I was in an area I've never been before. So it's just kind of crazy how God worked that out. Like, all the things that went wrong to lead me to that piece of woods, I never would have hunted there probably at all this whole season, to be honest. And those hunters being there and pushing us into a different spot, and that spot not working out, and then finally landing at this spot for the last hour. I mean, I was so frustrated that day. I usually sit for like the last 3 hours of the evening. So for me, I kind of make sure that my brother and my dad and stuff, I just do most of the scouting. So I kind of am sitting them in spots and telling them where to go, kind of. And I was kind of at a loss. I was like, I don't even know what to do. Like, I was just frustrated. And then to have that happen, was such a gift from God. It really was. Like, I told my wife, she was telling me after, she's like, you've said for months this year, like just one time, I told my wife this so many times, one time I just want things to go perfectly. And I know that it does happen, and this season I had lost a lot of that hope. Like everything seemed to be going wrong, and it finally did happen. So it was a pretty special moment. So very thankful. Stay tuned for episode 10. Dan ended up killing a pretty nice 8-pointer 2 days after I shot mine. He shot his on Veterans Day, and that will be our next episode. It's amazing how quick a season can change. We thought everything was going wrong for us, and then in 2 days we both tag out on our rifle bucks. So stay tuned for that. I gotta get the giggles out. I do this every time I do this. Every time I get in front of a camera, I can't help it. I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm Ricky Bobby. 2019. I'll go rub my face. The first 2019. One of the things I get the most excited about when I do shoot a deer is showing Maddie. She seems really into it right now. I mean, she's only 4, so she might hate it when she's 13. And gosh, I don't want to think about that. I'm gonna cut that part out. Dating and ugh, gross. Man. So stay tuned for our next episode. Episode 10 will be Dan. It'll be Dan. Episode 10 will be Dan. Just all Dan. It'll be him sitting on the couch eating pizza. Just videos of Dan. It'll be great. You're gonna love it. Awesome. Let me try that one again. Has it ever been this painful to watch someone do interviews? Are you this way too? Okay, perfect. Awesome. Awesome. We both suck. Sweet. Just kidding.